It's 2012 in Brazil, and the doctor examines the remains of a victim. It's his job. He's a coroner, so he's used to seeing gruesome scenes. But this one was different. He had never examined a body like this one. This young man's body had been brutally dismembered. The doctor had performed autopsies on train, car accidents, horrible scenes, but nothing as bad as this. And these body parts were found in a country road, some of them inside blue bin bags, but others just scattered around the ground. And the victim, a millionaire, soon to be billionaire, CEO of one of the biggest food companies in Brazil. But who could have possibly done this to him, and why? This video contains information that has been researched from various sources that are available to the public. While I strive to provide accurate and up-to-date content, some details may not be entirely verified or may have changed since the time of research. Viewer discretion is advised, as the topics discussed may be disturbing to some audiences. And if you like true crime and other dark and mysterious stories, subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thank you for being here, and let's get into today's case. 42-year-old Elize Matsunaga was a very successful CEO of a very big food company called Yoki. He inherited the company from his father, who inherited it from his father, and so on. So as you can imagine, he had a life of privilege, full of luxury, expensive cars, expensive clothes, and a lovely wife. But no, that life wasn't good enough for him. He always wanted more. Well, Marcus actually had a little bit of an addiction. He was addicted to women and sex. And to be honest, he was never very popular with women. His friends used to joke about him all the time, saying that it was because of his looks, and that he only married his wife because she was the first woman to ever like him. So he was desperate and just settled with her. But even though his beautiful wife loved him, he just wanted more. He wanted to have sex with other women. So I guess you already know where this is going. He started cheating on her. But like I said, he was never really good with the ladies. So Marcus started looking for women online. He signed up for a escorting service online where he would simply hire women to have sex with. And he liked it so much that he became a regular user. He would go out with multiple women and go on a few dates with them, and then find another woman to go out with, and so on. Until one day in 2004, he hired a woman named Elize. Now, it all started the same way as with all of his other escorts he hired. He would meet them a few times and then go out for some dates and have sex. But this time, it was different. He felt a connection with Elize. He really liked her. He started getting to know her a little bit more and going out with her more often than he would with other escorts. Now you might be wondering, who is Elize? Why is she more special than the other girls he went out with? Well, her life was very different from Marcus's life. Again, he was a millionaire. He came from a very wealthy family. But Elize's life was the complete opposite. She wasn't wealthy at all, and she was raised in a very small town. And she didn't have an easy life at all. When she was 15 years old, she was kicked out of her house after telling her mom that her stepfather essayed her. And her mom chose to trust her boyfriend over her own daughter, and then kicked out Elize, who was then left on her own at 15 years old to try and build her own life by herself. So as you can imagine, that's obviously not a very good life. You're 15 years old, you have no idea what you're doing. But she knew she had to make a life for herself, and she wasn't going to stop until she accomplished all of her goals. So Elize moved to the big city and started studying to be a nurse. And while she was studying, she had to do a lot of practices. She even done some internships. But soon she started realizing that that job wasn't for her. Elize was a very emotional person, and she started getting connected emotionally to her patients. And as someone that works in a medical field, she would need to be a little bit more rational. And of course, that is very difficult when you're seeing your patients get sick or even pass away. And that's something that Elize just couldn't handle at all. It would really affect her mentally. So she decided to give up on her dream to be a nurse and try something else. And that something else would be law school. But as you can imagine, law school is not very cheap. And Elize had to find a way to make money to pay for her tuition. So one day she came across one of those escorting services online, and she decided that would be the best way for her to make her money. But she would not only make a lot of money there, she would also meet her soon-to-be husband, Marcus Matsunaga. So now we're in 2004 and Marcus and Elize are in a relationship. And Marcus, well, he didn't like Elize's job, even though that's where he met her. He thought that he could save her and make her have a better life. So he told her that if she stopped working as an escort, that he would basically give her a better life and financially support her, give her everything a girl could dream of. Oh, and let's not forget that at this point, Marcus still had a wife. Yes, he was married. It's easy to forget that he's married when he's going around cheating and dating a bunch of women and now in another relationship. And this secret relationship went on for a few years until Marcus finally decided to divorce his wife and make his relationship with Elize public. And in 2009, they get married. They have this beautiful ceremony. It's like a fairy tale. And they move into a huge apartment together in São Paulo. And for a few years, they seem like they live like a regular couple, or that's what everyone else thought. But Marcus's friends had their suspicions with his new relationship. And remember what I said at the start, his friends always thought that Marcus wasn't good with girls. So how in the world did he manage to get this beautiful young girl to like him? Oh, also something I forgot to say. Elize was in her 20s and Marcus was 42. So yeah, there was literally 2 decades between them. So his friends were suspicious. They did not trust that one, Marcus would easily get a girl to fall in love with him, but they also had a very sexist thought in their head that Elize was just a gold digger and she was after his money. And of course, Marcus never told his friends or his family how they met. They must have made up some story, I'm sure. But it was kind of weird and nobody asked a lot of questions. After some time, they just accepted it, and his family was very welcoming to Elize at the start. But Marcus didn't care what his friends thought, what his family thought. He continued his relationship with Elize. Well, now they're married, right? So they're living their best life. They lived in luxury. They had a huge apartment, like I said. They would go on a lot of holidays. And their apartment, honestly, I keep saying apartment, but to be honest, it's more like a mansion. It was insane. They even had a wine cellar with over $2 million worth of wine. Who drinks that much wine? And they also had a secret room where they had a lot of guns, which sounds kind of crazy, but apparently wasn't weird for them because they had a very interesting hobby. They liked to hunt. And that's what they would do together the most. They would go out into the woods, look for animals, kill them, and then Marcus would teach Elize how to skin those animals and then dismember them. Now we fast forward to 2012 and their relationship is perfect. They have everything anyone could always want. And Elize is living this princess lifestyle and she's just living her best life. And they even have a daughter. So perfect family, right? And not only is everything going well for Marcus's family and his relationship, but also for his business. Remember, he's the CEO of a very big company. And now he was offered $1 billion deal to sell the company. But nothing is ever perfect forever, right? Because right before Marcus is about to sign this $1 billion deal, he goes missing. On the 19th of May of 2012, Marcus calls his friends and arranges a meetup. He calls them to go to the bar to celebrate his new deal, and also he hasn't seen his friends in a long time. He's too busy with his family, his daughter, and his business. And of course, his friends say yes. And on that day, they head over to the bar and wait for him, but Marcus never shows up. He is also not at home, nowhere near his family or at work. He's nowhere to be seen. He just vanished. And of course, Elize gets really worried. She goes straight to the police and tells them her husband's gone. She doesn't know where he is. He just disappeared. And because of who Marcus is and how much he's worth, the police instantly believe that he was kidnapped for ransom. I mean, everyone in Brazil knew who he was. He was a very famous man. So the police starts their investigation. They are looking for anyone that could possibly have any motive to kidnap him. They are looking for clues, for someone trying to get money out of this, any ransom letters, any notes, any calls, any emails. But they don't find anything. They find nobody who could possibly be his enemy, or any ransom notes, any emails, any phone calls. They don't find a single clue that Marcus was kidnapped. So of course they spoke with Elize, who would have more information about Marcus. Maybe the last time she saw her, she could possibly help to understand the timeline of when he was missing. So she tells the police that the night that he went missing, he was going for a meeting with the people who were buying his business. He told her that he was possibly going to be a little bit late and that she shouldn't wait awake. But when she wakes up the next morning and he's not back, she's instantly worried. And that story really connects with the police's theory that he was kidnapped. Because if he was on the way to this meeting, surely someone knew, surely someone followed him and maybe kidnapped him. But again, no ransom note. And that's just not normal for this type of cases. But what the police didn't know is that Elize was keeping a secret. She didn't tell the full story. So she decides to go to her in-laws' house and just tell them everything that actually happened. She sits down with them and says, Marcus left. Last night, he just came home, packed his bags, and left. He just abandoned me and our daughter. And when they ask her why he would possibly do that, just leave like that out of nowhere, she says, well, he was cheating on me. Now, remember how Marcus and Elize met, right? He had a wife. He had already cheated on his wife multiple times before meeting Elize. Elize was one of those lovers. So it's not a very crazy idea that Marcus could have cheated on her again, right? Once a cheater, always a cheater. And Elize knew that. She knew that this was a possibility. And from the beginning of the relationship, she always had that in the back of her head. But this suspicion of hers wasn't just paranoia, it was actually true. But as soon as she found out he was cheating on her, she also found out that she was pregnant with their daughter. So that completely changed everything. At first, she was ready to just leave him and move on with her life. But when she found out she was pregnant, everything was different. She decided to just stay with him for the sake of their family and to just try and have a loving relationship. But of course, that was the worst decision she could possibly make, because even though she had forgiven him for cheating on her, she still believed that he was doing it again. So for the whole time, she was never completely happy. She was always thinking about him cheating. And I don't blame her. He could and he was cheating on her again. And there was nothing she could do that was gonna change this. He was gonna keep doing it. But she needed real proof, just so she could see it for herself and tell herself that she wasn't crazy. So she decided to hire a private investigator. But in the meantime, she kept her relationship with Marcus as normal. She didn't tell him about her suspicions. She didn't approach him at all. And she was just waiting for the proof. So one day, Elize, her daughter, and the babysitter go on a little trip to her hometown to visit family. And while she's there, she gets a phone call from the private investigator. And he tells her that he found proof. He was following Marcus and he saw him cheating on her. The investigator managed to take pictures and videos of Marcus going on a date with this woman in a restaurant that him and Elize were regulars at. So he didn't even care. He had no shame. He was bringing this woman out where everybody knew him. Everybody knew that he was cheating on his wife, basically, and he just didn't care. And not only that, the investigator also followed him out of the restaurant and into a motel where Marcus spent the night with this woman. So after hearing all this, Elize decides to go home early. So on the 19th of May of 2012, Marcus picks her up from the airport with their daughter at around 6:30 p.m. and then they just drive home. So Elize is telling all of this to her in-laws and she's explaining everything that happened. She also explains that when they get home, she confronted Marcus. She even showed him the videos and the pictures that she had of him cheating, the whole proof. So there was nothing he could say, he couldn't argue back. And of course, Marcus didn't even try to beg her for forgiveness. He just simply packed his bags and was gone. And after hearing all this, her in-laws were on her side. They actually felt so bad for her. They couldn't believe that their son was capable of doing something like this, cheating on his wife and also abandoning her and their daughter. It's crazy. They couldn't believe it, but they trusted her and they told her that no matter what, if she decided to leave him, they were going to help her and support her, that she still was part of their family. So this information gets somehow shared with the police. I'm not quite sure if it was Elize herself who shared it or her in-laws, but it doesn't matter. The police now knows about this. They know that Marcus just ran away, that he was never kidnapped. And to add to the story that he ran away, Marcus's brother received an email from Marcus telling him that he was okay, that he just left, and that his family shouldn't worry. So for a while, the police thought that this was proof enough that Marcus was gone, that he just wanted to start a new life, maybe with this new lover he had. So for a while, they kind of dropped the case, but because nobody heard from Marcus ever again after a few days, it was weird that he didn't contact anyone, his entire family. He was just gone. Apart from the email, there was absolutely no sight of him. But things are about to change. The police is about to find out that Marcus didn't run away. He was also not kidnapped. He was murdered. A week after Marcus was first reported missing, the police finds body parts on the side of a country road. There were multiple body parts all over the floor, and even the detectives in the case were feeling sick after looking at all this. There were some parts inside blue plastic bin bags, and some other parts was just loose on the ground. Arms, legs, everything. And near those body parts, they also found another blue bag with clothes in it. Clothes that looked very expensive, luxurious. And next to that bag, they find another blue bag with a head inside. Marcus's head. And during autopsy, they saw that on the head, there were 2 bullet holes, one coming from under his jaw and one from the back of his head. So it looked like that was certainly his cause of death. But they still needed more information. They had to analyze all of the body parts and also find out who did this and why. Now, during autopsy of all the other body parts, they noticed that all the cuts were very precise. So again, he was dismembered. All of his body parts were separate. But those cuts, they could only have been done by someone who knew what they were doing. Someone that maybe had a medical background, someone that understood the human anatomy. So with that information in mind, the police decides to go back to Marcos and Elize's apartment and look at the security footage. So the first footage they get is from the elevator, and it shows Marcos, Elize, and their daughter arriving. It shows Marcos unloading the suitcases, Elize holding their daughter, them just arriving home from the airport, just like Elize mentioned. But one little detail, Marcos's clothes were the exact same clothes that they found in the crime scene. So that means that he was killed that same night or maybe the next morning, certainly wearing the exact same outfit when he was murdered. Later on that evening at around 7:30 p.m., Marcos is seen again going downstairs to collect a pizza that they ordered. But this time he seems a little bit nervous and fidgety. It's like something is wrong. So they see him go down, they see him come back up with the pizza, and they keep looking to see what happens next, waiting to see Marcos leaving the apartment. Like Elize said, with his packed bags, he just left, right? That's her story. But there is no footage of Marcos. His last footage is him coming back up with that pizza, and that's it. There is no footage of him that night, the next morning, any other day. He is just gone. But instead, they see Elize leaving the apartment the next morning with 3 very heavy suitcases. But she wasn't going on a trip. She didn't have anything planned. And those suitcases looked extremely heavy. You can see from the video she is struggling to carry them. And later that day, she comes back home without suitcases, just by herself. And when they saw this, they instantly thought that those suitcases must have had something horrible in them. And they believed, oh my God, did Elize kill her own husband? So they arrest Elize. She tries to deny it. She tells them, no, I didn't do that. Why would I kill my husband? But after some time of them pushing her and telling her, look, we have some really incriminating footage of you carrying heavy suitcases. It looks like you're trying to get rid of a body. Here's what she says. When they came back home from the airport, Elize decided to demand an explanation from Marcos about the cheating. So they argue all night. She shows them the pictures, the videos, and he tries to defend himself, and she keeps pushing for him to just admit to it. And after hours of arguing, they decided to just order a pizza because they just couldn't be bothered to cook, and they were just in the middle of a very serious argument. Now, while they are waiting for the pizza to arrive, Marcos gets a phone call and he anxiously tells Elize that he just needs to leave. It's because his dad calls him and he needs help for something, so he needs to go right now. But Elize knew. At this moment, she had all of her alerts on, and she knew that this was not his dad calling him. This was certainly his lover calling him and asking him to meet her. So he was now about to abandon her and their daughter to meet with this other woman, and she was not gonna stand for it. So the argument gets even more heated. Elize is shouting at Marcos, and he just flips. He became furious. He cursed at her, told her that she was crazy, and even slapped her. And he also threatened Elize to take custody of their daughter, and that she was never going to see her again because she was just a crazy person who could not take care of their daughter. But he didn't stop there. He started making fun of her about where she came from, about her history of being an escort. He was just doing everything he could to make her feel like shit about herself, to make her hate herself. And you might be thinking, where is this coming from? Didn't they just have this lovely, nice relationship apart from all the cheating, right? But Elize actually tells the police that this was a normal occurrence in their relationship, that he was abusive to her. He would emotionally abuse her constantly. But this was the first night where it became physical, where he slapped her. Now, during this heated discussion, They were walking around the house and just fighting and screaming at each other. Elize noticed that Marcus was really close to where one of the firearms they had was kept. So she feared that he was going to use it on her. So Elize decided this was not going to happen. She had to defend herself. So she instantly ran into the other room, picked up another firearm, which, according to what she said in the statement, was only to intimidate Marcus, not to actually use it against him. So with the gun already in her hand, she pointed it towards Marcus. And despite the threat, he kept going. He continued to insult her. He just wouldn't stop. It actually got worse. And all of this emotion, all of this anger, all of this sadness in Elize made her do something that she really regretted. She fired the gun, and the shot hit her husband's head, who died instantly, according to her. Now, instead of calling the police and admitting to the crime and saying it was self-defense or something that happened out of the moment because of her emotions, whatever, she decided to instead try to get rid of the body because her daughter was at the house. She fears that if she told the police, they were gonna arrest her for the rest of her life. And her daughter wasn't gonna have a mom. So she had to take action and do anything she could to make sure she was never caught. So she brings Marcus's body into the bathroom. She then gets one of the knives from their hunting collection, and she decides the best way to get rid of them is to dismember his body. And that's exactly what she does. Now remember, Elize had a nursing background. Even though she didn't fully work as a nurse, she had some knowledge. And not only that, she also had knowledge from hunting, from skinning and dismembering the animals, something that Marcus taught her. So because of all this knowledge, she knew where to start, from what ligaments it would be easier to cut, and she easily cuts him herself, all by herself. She dismembers his entire body using knowledge that he taught her, using a knife that they used together to hunt. This is just so dark. And what's even more messed up is that while she was there dismembering her husband's body, her baby daughter started crying. So she leaves her husband half dismembered in the bathroom, goes to her daughter, soothes her, and then goes back and continues what she was doing. So she dismembers him into 6 parts: head, arms, chest, and legs. After that, she placed his remains inside different blue plastic bags, then puts them inside the suitcases that we saw in the footage earlier, and just leaves the building. So on May 20th of 2012, at around 11 a.m., Elize left the apartment carrying 3 large suitcases with her husband's remains inside. She was heading towards her hometown. I don't know what she was planning to do when she got there, but halfway through the trip, she decided to not go to her hometown and to just abandon Marcus's body parts on a country road. So the body was found on May 23rd of 2012 and then forwarded for investigation and so on. Now on June 6th of 2012, the police start reconstructing the crime scene based on what Elize told them. And she cooperated. She goes to the apartment with them and shows them exactly what happened, where she killed him, and everything. So with that, all of their reconstruction was completed by June 7th of 2012, and they had all the information they needed to go for trial. Now, during trial, the prosecutors painted a picture of a calculated and premeditated crime. This was because of a few different things. Well, the first one being that, of course, she murdered her husband, and not only that, she took the time to dismember him. Who would do that? I would call the police straight away. I would be terrified if I done that out of, emotion in the moment. I would never in my life think of dismembering that person's body, especially because it must have taken hours. It wasn't something quick. So at any moment, she could have stopped and said, "Oh my God, what am I doing? This is horrible," and just called the police. But she didn't. And also, the prosecutors believed that she planned this whole thing, that it wasn't just, oh, at the moment we were arguing and it happened. They thought that her entire plan was to kill him from the start, and they painted that picture of a gold digger, which is kind of crazy to me. Like, okay, I understand what she done was horrible, but there was no proof that she was gold digging. And Elize's defense insisted that Marco's infidelity and also years of his emotional abuse had driven her to a breaking point. So she claimed that she acted in self-defense during a very violent confrontation, which again comes from her story, right? There's nobody else that can tell a different story. She's the only witness to her own crime. But even with her defense, in 2016, Elize Matsunaga was sentenced to 19 years in prison for the murder of her husband. And she did express quite a lot of remorse, but she maintained the story that she never planned to do this, that it was just a spur of the moment action. Now, it's really hard to have an opinion in this case because Elize might not have necessarily planned the crime, but the way she went about it was definitely cold. And even though Marcus was a serial cheater, there is no proof that he was abusive towards her. And there's no proof that her story is real. Something that I really just can't wrap my head around is how she went to her in-laws' house and just played the victim. Like, she just went and said, your son cheated on me, he's a horrible person, knowing quite well that she had just spent the last few hours dismembering him. It's actually crazy. And there are a lot of other theories. There are some theories that say that Elize didn't do this by herself, that she must have had help from a man, which could be true, but again, there's no proof. And people are saying that just because they think that she wouldn't be capable of carrying the body by herself or dismembering by herself. I don't know. I don't think that it didn't look like there was another person involved, to be honest. And also, there's a really big belief that Marcus was still alive when she dismembered him because of autopsy and also the recreation from the crime scene. They really believed that the gunshot didn't kill him instantly, that he was still alive and she was there dismembering him, knowing he was alive. So if that's the case, then that's another kind of evil. But now Elize is actually out of jail. She is a free woman out and about, and Netflix released a documentary about her and her side of the story. She still says that she did it to protect herself from Marcus, that she believes that he would have killed her that night if she didn't kill him. And she also said that one day she hopes to be able to tell her daughter the whole truth about what happened to her father, which is a very dark thing to say. So she was granted parole in 2022, and as long as she follows the rules, she will continue being free. Now, I really want to know what you guys think. Was Elize Matsunaga a victim of abuse and acted on her emotion, or a mastermind who carefully plotted her husband's murder? Now, if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you would like me to cover next. And join me next time for more true crime, weird and dark stories. Bye!